process here. Okay.
All right, can you see my screen there, Sanook?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
We hear you okay.
Okay, wonderful. Good evening, everybody. My name is Naga Reshi. I'm broadcasting tonight from San Diego, California. Hope everybody can hear me well, and I hope everybody's having a good time at the conference. I'd like to thank Sanook for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here with you guys. I wish I could be there in person. Tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about sustainable brewing, and I'm just going to do a little intro here, tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Naga Reshi. As Sanook said, I'm an international brewmaster. I have over 25 years of brewing experience around the world. Some of the things you see here on this slide here is we're growing hops in our urban hop project here in Los Angeles, California. Down here below, you see some of my travels where I've actually even cooked for the Dalai Lama. I've done a lot of cool things with cooking and brewing around the world, and had some great experiences. Some of my background, Sanook said, I started in Itaparica, Brazil, where I opened the first craft brewery in the state of Bahia. We did a completely off-the-grid brewery down there, which was solar powered and utilized local fruits and wild yeasts. I did that for 10 years, and after that I opened up Wynwood Brewing Company in Miami, which was the first craft brewery in the city of Miami, Florida. We won several gold medals there for our fine beers. I did a brewery in Kodiak, Alaska, which was amazing. We did a lot of off-grid brewing up there as well. We actually utilized snow melt and glacial melt of icebergs to brew beer, and we did a lot of cool things with local ingredients up there, foraging local flowers and Alaskan wild herbs to create some beers up there. After that, I went to Los Angeles, where I opened up Dry River Brewing, where we won an award for the Los Angeles Times, the greenest brewery in the state of California. So we were able to produce beer off-grid there as well, using solar energy and recycled water and local ingredients. Also brewed at Farmers Brewing Company in Chico, California. Also have two other kombucha companies here in California and one in Portland. So let's move on. Sustainability, what's the big deal? Why is it important? And why are we talking about it today? Well, obviously sustainability has become a big issue in the world. Obviously global warming is a major concern. I've given this talk a couple times over the years, and every time I give it, it becomes a more poignant topic to go over, especially for us as brewers, because brewing does consume a lot of energy, and we do have a lot of responsibility to our planet to be more responsible citizens, right? Sustainability, who cares? Why is it a big deal? Well, it's a big deal for our children, right? All of us have families, and all of the children of this planet have a right to inherit a clean planet. You know, when I was growing up, I was able to swim in rivers and drink out of streams and go hiking in the jungle without, you know, a polluted environment. And I think it's up to us to be the stewards of this planet. So sustainable brewing, what does that mean? And I'll talk a little bit about what that means as a brewer. So the goal of a sustainable brewing project is to protect our planet and to secure the children's future. And that means through intelligent design, practice, and operation. The vision, for me at least, is to build a 100% carbon neutral brewery, which utilizes green power and is self-sufficient in raw material production. A brewery which nourishes the land and the community it inhabits. Right now, there's no current path. There's no established systems for brewers to be sustainable. So it's actually up to us as brewers and citizens to come up with sustainable methods for brewing. And learning from the past, hundreds of years ago, all breweries were sustainable and were set up near rivers and streams, and usually were set up on a farm. So we need to kind of look to the past to see how we can move forward in the future in a more sustainable way. Let's see what sustainability means. So sustainability, as you can see in this slide here, is a cycle, right? You basically start with your water systems. As you know, in brewing, we use a lot of water, so I like to start with water in all of our systems. And we'll just go around this here. Renewable energy is another big part of sustainability. There's a lot of things that we can do, obviously, with solar nowadays, with heating water and with also production of energy using the sun. Waste management, recycling, obviously, and resources management. Energy efficiency. A lot of the energy that is consumed in a brewery is wasted with latent heat loss and all kind of energy wasting through water and energy loss through the brewing process. So our challenge as a brewer creating these newer systems is to make all of our systems as energy efficient as possible. Environmental justice, making sure that the environment around us and the people that live in our environment are protected, and that includes our children. Air quality is a huge issue, obviously now. CO2 emissions is a major contribution to greenhouse gases. So us as brewers, we produce a lot of CO2 as a byproduct. So it's important for us to manage our CO2. Tree canopy and soil health, obviously protecting our environment and our forests to protect our clean air and our environment. Right now, the Brazilian rainforest as one issue is being cut down at an alarming rate. These kind of things have to be reversed immediately. And ecological systems, using the earth and all of its ecological systems in a complete holistic system to create a cleaner environment. Okay, so sustainable brewing, some key factors. In this particular slide here, you'll see this is on top of one of my breweries in Los Angeles. This is a solar thermal heating device, and this is used to heat up brewing water for the process. And this basically uses these vacuum evacuated tubes to collect the sunshine, and will heat this reservoir of water up to a temperature which is able to produce beer. So we're able to produce beer for free using just the sun, using a device like this. Now, this is just one example. Some of the other things we need to think about, like I said, is water conservation. A typical brewery, we use 6 liters of water to make 1 liter of beer, which is very inefficient. So if you think about every time you drink a glass of beer, it takes 6 glasses of water to produce that for the local brewery. So obviously there's a lot of waste there. Reverse osmosis is one thing that a lot of breweries use, that actually to produce 1 liter of water in reverse osmosis, you waste 2 liters of water. So a lot of breweries are throwing away 50% of the water just in reverse osmosis processes. CO2 capture and recycling is another huge opportunity for brewers and the brewing industry. Right now, there's technologies which can recapture CO2 during the fermentation process, which actually produces quite a bit of CO2 emissions in breweries. So we're actually able to recapture that CO2 and use it back in the process of carbonating our beer and running our breweries. Eliminating fossil fuels, as well as a major contribution in the brewery industry. So instead of powering the steam boilers with fossil fuels, we're now switching to solar thermal, we're switching to geothermal, and we're switching to the other renewable non-fossil fuel energy sources. Another huge industry energy chain supply loss is through distribution. And a lot of breweries right now are pushing for larger distribution footprints. But what they have to understand is that when you're shipping your product across the country or across the world, it consumes a lot of fossil fuels. And what we're finding now is that people are enjoying higher quality products in a local, smaller footprint, which brings down fossil fuel consumption, increases your quality of your product, and shortens the supply chain, which will improve our chances of global sustainability. Some of the obvious benefits of sustainable brewing, we have to save our planet is the obvious one. As global warming increases, it's critical that we do everything that we can to cut down our global emissions. Inspiration. As brewers, we have a very unique opportunity to influence our community and our local businesses. Me personally, I've done a lot to encourage other local business owners to begin green energy programs, whether it be in brewing or any other kind of manufacturing. There's always something that can be done to improve what we're doing. So us as brewers, we need to inspire the rest of the world and to push the new technologies forward. Quality is also improved quite a bit through sustainable practices. So by using local ingredients, we're creating partnerships with our local producers of raw materials, and we're also minimizing our carbon footprint. Brand equity is also improved. Nowadays, consumers are looking for products that are responsible. So I find that the more that we do to become sustainable, our brands are recognized as sustainable brands, and it improves our sales because people want to support brands who are supporting the planet. So it just makes sense to do your part, and you'll see it on the other side as well in your sales. It also decreased costs. So if you're thinking green, sometimes it takes a little bit more investment, a little bit more thinking in the beginning, but over time you'll see long-term rewards and cost savings. Okay, some of the green initiatives that we can do. Rainwater capture is a very important one. As local water supplies become stressed, breweries have a responsibility to start going off the grid as much as possible. That means producing their own water supplies. So we have lots of urban water, rainwater capture systems in place. Most of this rainwater we use for cleaning and rudimentary gray water processing. We also use steam cleaning, which is a huge savings, over 50% water savings over conventional pressure washing or just regular using a water hose. So steam is a lot more efficient. It's a sanitary way to sterilize your brewery and your equipment without using harsh chemicals, and it saves a lot of water. Also gray water treatment. So breweries create a lot of sewage effluent, from processes. So what we do is we use a lot of gray water processing, such as plants and recycling, to pre-treat our water before we send it down into the sewer systems. A lot of urban sewer systems are becoming overrun by breweries, such in Portland. In Oregon, they have over 250 breweries. And they had to create a moratorium for breweries because they were pumping so much affluent and yeast down into the sewer system. It was creating a major problem in the city of Portland. So there's a major issue there with dumping things down the drain. So we have to do all we can to pre-treat those. CO2 capture, we talked a little bit about that before, but there's lots of new technology that can recapture CO2, the byprocesses of brewing. And some of the other things we do, like in my brewery, we do a lot of natural carbonation. So we use special valves which capture the CO2 during the final fermentation process. and we're able to achieve natural carbonation, which improves product quality, reduces our time and our cost, and produces a better product at the end of the day. Package conditioning as well, using natural CO2. Yeast propagation, which is a pretty exciting way to be green. A lot of breweries don't recycle yeast, and one of the greatest expenses in a brewery is using yeast. So they're having to buy fresh pitchers of yeast from laboratories constantly, which is very expensive, not only for delivery, but for raw materials and wasting and pumping that old yeast down the drain. So what we do is we do yeast propagation. So basically creating small laboratories within our brewery, which we can control our own yeast. We also use climate tolerant yeast, which is acclimated to our environment. So we have to use a lot less resources for cooling the beer and controlling our fermentations. So, using nature and using the right yeast will cut your cooling costs quite a bit. Also, yeast recycling as part of your program. Okay, a few more things, and we'll just start wrapping it up here. Some of the new technologies that we use for brewing processes, mash filters, which is basically a membrane which squeezes your filter together. When you're brewing, it basically squeezes out all the juices and allows up to a 95% efficiency during brewing. And I've used this equipment recently, and it's really improved our efficiency, cut our costs, and reduced our energy consumption. Enzyme augmentation is another powerful tool that we use to speed up the brewing process and cut down on energy consumption. High gravity brewing, so we'll actually brew at much higher gravities and then cut it with water later. This saves us space, money, and energy. Finally, recapturing energy through our different processes. So using heat capture and recapture throughout our processes. So when we're heating something up, we're preheating water in another process. So we're saving time and money and energy in all of our costs. Okay, finally, a local supply chain. I try to use as much local ingredients as possible. Here in California, we have lots of ingredients local, lots of farmers. So instead of buying malt all the way from Europe, I'll buy California malt. This saves on greenhouse gases and also supports our local economy. We're doing a lot of local farming as well, and using delivery methods like you see in this picture here. We're using bicycles to deliver beer to local accounts instead of trucks. So doing little things like that will do your part in helping your green initiatives. Here's a couple other things that we do real quickly. Intelligent lighting. So in the brewery, we use LED lighting, solar lighting, daytime lighting, motion sensors. We do spent grain recycling. We have a biomass digester. Instead of throwing things away, we'll put them in the digester, and it'll break it down using enzymes into a gray water. We feed local livestock and compost. We use recycled bottles and are involved in recycling programs. And one important thing is green cleaning agents. Harsh chemicals and acids are very damaging to the environment. So make sure that you use clean, environmentally friendly cleaning environment. And also hire local and use intelligent scheduling. We switched to a 4-day work week at the brewery, which has saved quite a bit of time and money. So when we heat up the brew house, we do 2 or 3 brews in a day instead of once a day. So we save quite a bit of time and money there and energy. Okay, this concludes my presentation here. I'd like to encourage all of you to do your part and be intelligent and help save our planet. And I'd like to open the floor now for any questions if anybody has any. Okay. I'm not hearing, hold on, I'm not hearing anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Naga. This has been a hugely informative session.
Thank you.
And the material that you have covered is actually, there's quite a lot of material. And in fact, the next speaker that was going to follow you had some problem issues today, so couldn't show up, unfortunately. So I think we're going to actually keep you a little while longer here.
Okay.
Because what he was going to cover, and he's actually the president of the Rethink, and he makes health bars with reeds, basically the byproduct of beer, right? As you know, so he cooks it and he bakes it into a health bar. I'd like to personally ask you some questions, but I'm sure since you have covered a lot of ground here, I think the attendees who are listening to you will have some more questions as well. So here's my first question. Yeah, what do you see as? I mean, there's just. I think we could go on for another hour with questions, but the biggest question I have is since we are actually missing this talk. What would you think that you can make with the byproduct of beer or soy? I think you use rice in your brewing as well, so you know what is left as a reed, right? After you get the alcoholic beverage out, right? What is left with it? What do you think that you can make or other people can make, and what have you seen done, so far?
Well, I mean, the most common thing that I've seen, obviously, is agricultural recycling. So typically in the brewing industry, goes to cows and pigs is a very common recycling method.
Keep them healthy too, right?
Yeah, it's in Brazil. I had a farm right across the street from my brewery, and the cows would actually know the days that I'm brewing. And they would get so excited because, they would know that the days that I brew, we would feed them the spent grains, and they'd get very excited, and they would moo, and they'll all come onto the one side of the fence, and really enjoy that. So, chickens, cows, pigs, they love the spent grains. So, having that as part of a brewery or, a partnership with a local farm is really a great way to recycle that.
Right. It definitely keeps them healthy as well, right? Because it has a live properties in there, right?
Yeah, we actually mix some of the spent yeast in there as well. So the yeast is obviously a nutrient, so very good for the livestock as well. And then obviously composting is another really good way to recycle those things.
Oh, I see. Have you had any experience making or having seen somebody making a food?
Yes. There's actually several examples. Well, I'm sure you hear in Australia, there's a product which Vegemite, which is for human consumption. And that's the spent yeast and the spent grains mixed with some other nuts and some other oats and things like that. And they create a very nutritious kind of bar for survival and for eating, almost like a granola bar kind of thing. I've also, in some of my breweries, I've created dog treats, which are very popular as well. We've also created pizza, with the spent grains, makes a wonderful pizza. So that's one of my favorite ways. And bread, makes wonderful bread.
Bread, I see. Okay, well, does anybody else have a question for Naga?
I was wondering one thing, for the sustainable practices, how much does it depend on the scale, the size of the brewery?
Yeah,
what's applicable?
I think at any scale you can be effective and really start a program. I think it's actually easier at a smaller scale get started, there's a lot of small changes you can make immediately on a small scale and really at any scale. And most of it has to do with just, creating some better habits and some really basic things. So, the real major changes come at an industrial level. When you're talking about the major breweries, those are the ones that are really creating some of the major impacts in terms of water wasting and energy wasting. But that being said, any scalable solution can be implemented right away. I mean, we've done it at some of our smaller locations, and just implementing just steam cleaning, like I was telling you, we cut our water consumption in half, which is huge. I mean, just straight down the middle, just by changing one thing. So there's a lot that can be done, and it's really about sitting down and looking at your systems, whether you're large or small, and just attacking them one at a time and seeing, how can I save water here? How can I save electricity here? How can I save 1 kilowatt here? And, this aggregation of efforts really adds up at the end of the day.
Right. And since you've started so many breweries, is this something that's also most effective when you plan it from the beginning, or is it something you can bring into an existing operation as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be better to plan it from the beginning, but obviously that doesn't happen very often. Most people are already up and running and don't have the luxury of engineering in these green systems. I think we'll see that more and more going forward. People will start thinking ahead before they even pour any concrete. They're going to be thinking about, how they can be green. But
do people come to you with that kind of consulting request?
Yes. Yeah, that's a big part of what I do is retrofitting. There's a lot of breweries who get to the point where they're profitable and they want to start becoming a sustainable brewery and start doing things a little bit better and a little bit more responsible. And they'll come to me and say, Naga, how can we change what we're doing into a more sustainable process? And so we'll take a walk through the plant, and I can point out this, and this. Right away, we can make these huge savings without massive infrastructure changes. Now, some things will have to be massive infrastructure changes. Obviously, if you're changing from a oil-fired boiler into solar thermal, that's a massive change. But there's hundreds of things that we can do before those massive infrastructure changes.
Okay, great.
Naga, I have a question from John Ellen, who's going to actually speak tomorrow. He's also a brewer connecting us from Helsinki. And his question is, I'll just read his question. I would think that the spent grains would make a good substrate for growing mushrooms.
Yes.
Has that been tried?
Absolutely. I'm glad he pointed that out, because we actually have a project we just started last fall here in Southern California in the Ortega Mountains, where we're growing oyster and shiitake mushrooms on spent grain substrate. So yes, it's a wonderful substrate to use or as a growing medium for mushrooms.
I see. Great. Okay. Let's see. Anybody else a question? I do like to ask one.
There's a question in the chat.
There's a chat. Okay, hang on. Let's see. Okay, very impressed by the energy and resource savings you are practicing. This is from Professor Park. I should do something in that line. What would you suggest to do first? She has Professor Park has a small brewery. He's actually one of the sponsors. Yeah.
I'd like to offer this to anybody who's interested, but I do have a whole list of green initiatives that I could make available to anybody who's interested. of some of the list of things that we do at our brewery. Although, everything from lighting. I think lighting is one of the main things that people overlook, that you can change very easily in your brewery. Switched from incandescent lights to LED lights. Get your whole brewery on sensors, so when nobody's in the room, the lights go off automatically. And your water, look at your water consumption. That's the first thing that I always tell people, is take a look at your water systems, and you'll be shocked how much water you guys are wasting, and how you can recycle gray water. A lot of the water that you're putting down the drain, you can use for pre-washing and pre-cleaning and cleaning the floors. The first thing I always do is take the reverse osmosis tails, which get thrown down the drain, and I put in a holding tank. And right away, you're cutting your water loss in half. So all of those tails that get thrown down the drain for reverse osmosis, put that into a holding tank and use that for, cleaning your floors and pre-cleaning your tanks and things like that. And immediately you're going to have 50% water savings. And go to steam cleaning. That's another huge savings right away.
I see. Hello, Professor Mike. You came in. Oh, good morning. Okay. Were you listening to Naga this morning?
No, I wasn't. No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, this is very early there for you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think if you listen to the recording, there's a lot of great information with Naga's material. Naga, I'd like to ask you a question about the yeast that you talked about. That was the most intriguing thing. I was actually looking at your slides earlier, and was really curious about how many generations can this yeast live. And you talked about these wood chips. What kind of wood do you use?
Yeah, so that slide that I showed there is from Scandinavia, and it's called a Kvek yeast. And it's an ancient yeast that they've been using for hundreds of years up there in that part of the world. And it's a wild yeast. It's a Saccharomyces family of yeast. So it's just your typical brewing yeast. And basically, they store this on a wooden necklace. Basically, after they brew their beer, they throw this wooden necklace into the yeast cake, and the yeast gets absorbed into the soft wood. And they just put that necklace up on the outside of the barn, and they hang it and store it there for the whole year. It dries out on inside of the wood, and it just waits there until next brewing season. And so the next year, they just take that wooden necklace and throw it into their fermenter, and the yeast gets reactivated. And they use this for generations and generations and generations. And some of the farmhouse breweries out there use over 150 generations of the same yeast. So yeah, very interesting. So you're talking about literally 3 generations, grandfather, father, and son, all using the same yeast strain from the same bracelet. That's just repitched over and over and over and over, year after year after year after year. So it's a very incredible way, and shows how resilient yeast is. And if it's properly stored, can be used forever. And the great thing about that particular yeast, it can be fermented successfully up into 100 degree Fahrenheit. I've used that beer without any refrigeration to create like India Pale Ales and lagers, which typically require refrigeration, with no refrigeration at all. So it's a very exciting a section of fermentation science now, is to be able to use strains of yeast which are climate tolerant, which will save lots of energy.
Right, I would think so. I mean, people did brew before electricity. We just
Yes, sir.
we just throw everything in the freezer, and then we put it in the microwave to defrost.
Right. Yes.
We need electricity for both.
Yeah, we heat up and cool down, and heat up and cool down.
Yes.
So it's all about being more intelligent and kind of using our heads again, and even using gravity. All the breweries that I'm designing now we're using gravity again instead of using pumps for everything. We're using gravity to push things around the way that the old breweries did.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, this is the end of the program today. Tomorrow we have a very interesting session. Those of you who will be listening and to learn about how the sul is being made in different parts of the world, and also Jeff here is going to talk about his experience. Jeff has a very exciting and dynamic YouTube channel that I came across and just been admiring. And also we have Cheongju and Makgeolli maker from New York. She'll be speaking as well. And then a very interesting, I know that a lot of you have heard of Toki Soju, Brandon Hill's project from the East Coast, and now he has a company in Korea. A very interesting project, and I think you'll find it very, very interesting. So let's see here. We have reached the end of the hour, but since Professor Myrie just came on, and it's very it's been a while because your session was very early. Jeff, did you have any question for her? Or, since she just came on and she talked about the intangible heritage, yeah.
Can I just say how delighted I am, even though my presentation was pre-recorded, but how delighted I am to have been part of this. And I look forward to seeing the recording afterwards, because it's a very important topic. And I think it's a topic of growing importance, the role of intangible heritage in tradition, but also in society more widely.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. Okay. Jeff, I thought you wanted to say something there.
Oh, well, I'm just happy. I'm just happy to learn what I can, right? And that I mean that's part of preserving any kind of heritage. I do appreciate the chance to learn more about all of these things.
Great. Well, I have a good news. I just got a phone call. I wish I have several brains here, but phone's ringing, the text is coming. And, I also need to pay attention. Now, I just heard from Seoul that Reharvest, a gentleman who's going to talk about, he's a founder of Reharvest, and he's there on the floor. So we're going to switch back. Okay, hang on. All right. So this is the Rethink Sul as a Sustainable Food and Sustainable Environment. The gentleman who's going to talk about this is the founder and CEO, Alex Min. And yeah, there he is. Please welcome.